Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, tea time, yeah, Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, tea time, yeah. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz, tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time, guys. You know what time it is. It's storytelling time and words. And we don't serve a beverage in this house. We serve a different type of tea in the house of Miss Liz. So, but before we get started, we're going to get you over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel. It's called Miss Liz's Tea Times. Really easy to find. You'll find over 400 different interviews on that channel, and you can share, replay, watch at your own time. You can watch them in the morning, afternoon, evening, in your car, in your home, at a picnic, at an event. But don't tell anybody that I told you that. So tonight I have Kevin and Crispin in the house, and we're reversing the tables because I was on Kevin's podcast, Sad Times. So now tonight he's on my podcast, and we're going to switch the tables, and we're going to do Miss Liz style. So tonight's tea is truth, kindness, empathy, humor, advocacy, and reading. So those 6 words, we're going to be playing with those words a lot tonight. So before we get started, we're going to get you to grab a tea, grab a juice, grab a coffee, whatever you'd like. You do not have to drink tea to sit and have tea with Miss Liz. So let's do the disclaimer and some bio, and then we're going to get Kevin in here, and we're going to spill some tea, and we're going to have some fun tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment and taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. Significant to know that the show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. Again, all Tea Time shows are done on Thursdays, 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you see a Tea Time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday now, it's a rescheduled Tea Time, special Tea Time, or surprise Tea Time, because I just like to serve tea all the time. So now a little bit on my guests. Well, Crispin is originally from Monticello, Illinois. I'm going to get him to say it because I can't even say it. Is an actor, writer, podcaster, mental health advocate, and writer of short bios. In 2017, Kevin wrote, produced, and performed a one-man show called Invisible Now. The show was about his lifelong struggles with anxiety. His hope was to share his weird and frightening experiences, poking fun at himself whenever possible. After leaving the corporate space to pursue his performing and public speaking, he has also hosted a mental health podcast called Sad Times. Each week, Kevin welcomes a generous guest who shares stories from their lives when they were sad, upset, angry. Difficult stories are universal, but are not universal told. The goal of the podcast is to help people feel less alone, both those who listen and the tellers of the story. As an actor, he's known for his truthful, grounded performance and dedication. He believes any day that includes creativity is a worthwhile day. As a theatrical, I'm going to get him to say that word because I can't say it. It's my tongue again. Artist, he focuses on collaborations and joy. He especially loves working on pieces that challenges the way we think and employs us to learn into empathy. Let me get Kevin in here. Let me take a sip of my tea because, yes, Miss Liz is drinking tea. My throat's a little itchy tonight. So let me get Kevin in here. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, except for the name of the town, the
Oh,
place that you're
yeah,
born, and then they're theatrical.
theatrical.
I got it. See, I got it
Theatrical. You
just.
got it. And the town where I'm from is Monticello.
Oh,
Monticello.
oh.
It's named after Monticello, which is where Thomas Jefferson lived way back in the day.
Well, look at that. I've been reading your bio all week, and I'm just like, I'm going to be able to do this. And then I come online, and boop, my tongue just goes all over the place.
You did fine.
So, Kevin, I'm going to take you way back before we even
Okay.
start the tea.
All
So, who
right.
who was Kevin as a little guy, and who's Kevin now?
Wow, that's a good question. So as a little guy, I was really quiet. I didn't say a lot. My sister did most of the talking in our household. I was not really allowed to talk. I didn't even talk until I was well into being two. Um, I was really quiet, polite, and just listened to what my mom said and all that good stuff. And that went on until I was about eight. And then my parents got divorced, and then I became a little more vocal, is a way to put it, and became a big old smart ass. And nowadays, I'm trying to get back to being a little more quiet and listening to what other people are saying, and not just being the person talking all the time, just in general in life. So I guess that's a very broad way to, get Kevin now. Kevin trying to be quiet again, I guess is the way to say it.
So, start off quiet, get rebel, and then go quiet.
That's right. Yep. And we'll see. I mean, I still talk a lot, so I still got a long way to go to get back to the quiet front.
But it's a good thing, Kevin, because without having that voice, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, right? As podcasters.
That's right. I agree with that. Of course. One of the best things, and you know this very well, having done this for 5 years, I love hearing other people's stories. And you mentioned that in the opening. And so a lot of my podcast is just like the listeners who are wherever they may be listening. I'm listening to the story too, and I'm generally enraptured by it. So yes, I do talk on the podcast, but it also gives me a real good chance to listen as well.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I was on your podcast. You made me talk a lot.
That's right.
So,
I
Kevin,
just
I
yeah. Go ahead.
Kevin, you know what? Yeah, you made me talk a lot because I listened back to it and I was like, "Whoa, I really did talk, didn't I?"
Well, no, it was good. I mean, you had a great story to tell, an amazing story, and I was honored to have you on. And as I say, and I probably said this to you as we were getting ready to do my show, Sad Times. Um, I generally try to get the hell out of the way and interject every once in a while, maybe ask a few questions. But my job is to help keep you telling your story, but letting you tell it and me not tell it for you.
So, Kevin, I want to talk about that sad times because we talked a
Okay,
little bit about it in your bio, but what, how did that come about? Like,
sure. In my bio, you mentioned I did a one man show in Chicago in 2017 called Invisible Now, and as described, it really was just a show about all the weird stuff I've been afraid of. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. And when I was a kid, I was real quiet, but I had these racing thoughts that really gave me a lot of, it was really difficult. And I thought I was the only person who had these thoughts. I felt very isolated. I couldn't go talk to anybody about it. So I just kind of kept quiet about it and suffered in silence, etc. At some point, I learned that I was not the only person who had those struggles, and that was a seminal day in my life because that was when I knew I was not alone. And mental health does a lot of things, but one of the things mental health does more than almost anything is isolate us. So I did that show, and then coming out of that show, a friend of mine asked me to do the show kind of online on a Twitch channel that he was doing. I said, I don't know, I don't really want to do the show again. And then I came up with this idea for Sad Times. And so Sad Times, what it is a show, and where each week we do have a kind and generous guest like yourself who come on and tell their story. And we're not there to solve it, we're not there to diagnose it, and we're not there to judge it. It's simply to allow the story to be told so that somebody somewhere is listening to that and they hear something that maybe they've never heard before or thought, oh my God, I thought I was the only one who went through that, or I thought I was the only one who thought that. So, Sad Times is really a storytelling podcast. And as I say in my bio, we believe difficult stories are universal, but they're not universally told. We all have difficult stories, but we don't always talk about them. And I believe if we all talked a little bit more about those things, and then we'll build what I call the big empathy muscle, I think we'll all feel a little less alone.
I like that big empathy muscle.
Yeah.
And I found something when I did my deep search on you there,
Okay.
and it and you have let's not try to fix it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. That's right.
Because there's so many fixers, right? You say what you live with, and then they're like, well, let me fix you, or let me give you this supplement, or let's put you on this diet, or there's so many fixers out there, but there's nobody actually listening.
Yeah, and a lot of storytelling is catharsis. Excuse me, is catharsis, and catharsis can be interrupted if you try to solve it right away. Pardon me. And I'll be honest with you, Miss Liz. In my real life, I try to fix things when maybe I should just let them be a little bit, and so I try to put that part forward in the podcast to say I'm not here to fix it. I'm here to just hear it and sneeze, apparently.
It's the humor of the tea time.
That's right. It is.
And that's something else, the humor. We got to bring humor in, right? When it's
Always.
so heavy, we got to lighten it up with a little bit of joke.
Always. I mean, for example, I'm in Monticello right now, actually. I live in Chicago, but I'm in Monticello. It's the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States. And last night I'm here at my sister's, and my nephew, we put on my favorite movie of all time, which is Airplane. He had never
Oh,
seen it, and he laughed his ass off last night, and it was great. And I bring Airplane up because that movie makes more sense to me than most things I really see or in real life. I mean, it's just so funny, it's absurd, it's subversive. It's just and in humor. I always say that kindness is the only thing that I understand to make sense 100% of the time, but humor is almost 100%. Not always, but almost there, right? So humor should be, in my estimation, a daily, hourly, minute part of our lives because it does, at least for me, it helps me take myself less seriously and it helps me understand the world around me in ways that would be bereft if I didn't have humor.
right. I always tell my kids it's good to laugh at yourself once in a while.
Yes, yes, or daily, it
Yeah.
helps.
You're by yourself and you're doing something, and then you just burst out laughing there, and then you're like, what the heck am I laughing at? But
I
then it
know,
kind of changes the mood, right?
always. Yeah, that's the other thing. You can laugh, and then no matter how, pissed off you were, if you're laughing, you're not pissed off at least for that one moment, right? And it'll give you just a little perspective. Whereas if you weren't laughing at something or finding something humorous, you might not have access to that little piece of perspective.
Yeah. I think we need more humor in the world. Like
I
we,
agree.
like you said, an hour a day. Come on, if watch a comedy or something for an hour. Some. I like to find these little clips online where like there's a little duck running across the room or something, and it's just the way he waddles. It gives me a chuckle, and I'm just like, well, I'm going to share this because I think somebody else needs a chuckle, right?
That's right. Right.
Yeah, just silly things where people will be like, where the heck is she going with this? Like, but I just like to throw those in once in a while. So have you
Yeah.
ever done that, Kevin? Like put something online and you're just like have a good laugh, guys.
Um, I wish that I have more than I have. As far as memes or short videos, I never know where to find those. As far as I guess I'll say, as far as social media goes, years ago, I learned that I did not like to scroll. I would scroll, say, Facebook, and I would just find myself getting sadder and sadder, and I couldn't put a finger on why it was. And so now when I go on social media, to promote my show or to support other people, I don't scroll down, right? So I'm not, I enjoy when people send me a meme, but I'm often not finding memes to send to other people.
Oh, so we got to send them to Kevin.
Yeah, send them to me. I could use them.
So
Also,
Kevin, Kevin, let's talk about your tea. I
okay.
want to talk about the T first, and then we're going to go to the E and the A because I like the T that you gave me. Your T you gave me was truth and kindness.
Mm,
So tell
yeah.
me about those words.
My, I'll start with kindness. Kindness is my favorite thing in the world. I try every day to be kind. I do not always succeed, unfortunately, but I am human. I believe small little bits of kindness to people that you've known your whole life or people you met 4 seconds before can really change somebody's day, week, month, year, life. I can think off the top of my head a number of times where somebody was kind to me when they did not have to be. They didn't even know me, and it just changed my day. Life is hard enough as it is, and I believe that kindness is imperative to help us all get through this. Truth, I mean, truth is the ideal, right? We all want to be true to ourselves. We want to be true with everyone in our lives, and I think that if you can be true to yourself, be true to yourself, then you're going to be a better version of yourself with everybody else. So just being honest with yourself and being honest with others and not uh, lying about, well, anything really, but not running away from what the truth of the matter is. There's a quote by David Foster Wallace, which is, "The truth will set you free, but not until it's done with you." And that's true. But the truth will set you free. So I guess that's where those two come into play for me.
I like the T, and I like when you guys switch it up because then it makes me dig a little deeper, right, into the
Yeah,
T of you.
yeah.
And being true to yourself is hard. It's hard
Mm.
work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially
Every
when you
day.
live with mental illness, right?
Yep.
And you're not understanding the illness or the diagnosis that was given to you.
Yeah.
So when you were diagnosed, Kevin, did you understand what it
So
meant?
I did when I was diagnosed with OCD. I was in my late 20s, but I had been suspecting that I had it or maybe some other form of by another name. So when I was told that I had OCD, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I've always inhibited these things. Um, However, I think one thing that's important to note about OCD is it's not just maybe the popular media perception of it is, oh, I've got everything in perfect order and I wash my hands 700 times a day or whatever it may be. That's just, it's about, for me, I talked about earlier when I was a kid and I'd have these racing thoughts. I would ruminate and I would obsess these thoughts over and over and over again as if these thinking about it was going to solve whatever problem I had. Well, that obsessive thinking leads to compulsive behaviors. I have like I count my steps. I have to touch doors certain ways. Just dumb things that have been so ingrained in me for so long that if I don't do them, I feel that anxiety. And that's why the compulsions are not great for you because, yes, they tamp down that feeling of anxiety in the moment, but that anxiety is not going away. You're just pushing off the inevitable, right?
Yeah.
So,
We have a question here for you, Kevin.
sure.
Living with OCD, how do you feel the movies portray that?
That's a wonderful question. I will say that when I was in high school, a movie called As Good as It Gets came out. It had Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt. Jack Nicholson plays somebody with severe OCD, and well, I did
That
not.
was a good movie.
Oh, isn't it a great movie? Well, I did not share a lot of his compulsions. I saw that movie. I was 15 years old, and I saw that movie, and I cried after it because I felt a little less alone. I guess I was like, I get where he's coming from. I know there's a show called Monk, which I've never really actually watched, which is about a detective played by Tony Shalhoub who has obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, so the little I've seen, I think they do a good job. I think the joke I always like to make, this isn't really to the question, but people are always like, "Oh, I'm so OCD about my dishes," or "I'm so OCD about this." I always like to say, "Well, I'm not OCD about folders. I'm OCD about life, like all of
Yeah.
it." So I think as long as in the presentation of somebody with OCD, it's still like any other story, presents a complete character, and this is just one part of it. I think that's the most important thing.
I think that's the biggest struggle, right, with mental illness is we talk about it, we speak about it, we share our stories, but we don't understand the diagnosis, right? And
Yeah,
then movies come along and then they make these movies and they portray us to be evil. Like I live with DID, and you watch the movie. I couldn't even watch the movie because it was making me look like I'm a monster. And I'm just like, that's not who I am.
yeah,
So a lot of movies are portrayed to the extreme.
yeah. That's true. Or they want to focus on just the negative parts, or the juicy, salacious parts of it, right?
Yeah.
When, to your point, I mean, living with mental illness is living with mental illness. It's not that fancy. It's pretty damn in the trenches, as it were.
So doing the podcast on sad times, Kevin,
Hmm.
have you have you seen different diagnoses that you've never heard of?
Um, that's a good question. I think that, well, I tell me what DID stands for again, please.
And dissociation disorder. I have DID, I have BPD, and I have conversion disorder.
So I do recall, the reason I asked you that is I recall when we did our prep call ahead of you coming on the show, you told me a few of those things, and I had not heard of those at the time. I mean, they made sense to me as you explained them to me. In general, I don't always hear somebody's diagnosis on the show, but I do. What I do hear are incredible stories um, of anything you could imagine. Things I never thought I would ever talk to somebody who's gone through A, B, C, or D, whatever it may be. So I always learn something new from this because I do believe stories are so imperative. Another thing I say is stories are the great healing currency of humankind. The more we hear, the more we heal. And I believe we're all just a collection of stories. And so hearing a different story each week from a brave and generous person always teaches me something about obviously the world around me, but also about myself.
We have another question here for you, Kevin. Do you
Sure.
think storytelling is a new way of healing?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't even know if I would call it a new way. Think about like one of my favorite thing to do probably is read. I read because it helps me understand myself. It helps me understand those around me, the world around me, as I keep saying. And I think about religion is a set of stories. Reading, of course, stories, films, television, now podcasts. We're always going to stories in order to understand ourselves and everyone else better. So I think that storytelling is more prevalent than maybe with obviously with the internet and with the ability for so many people like yourself to go out and share their stories. But I do believe stories going back all the way back to Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. These are just stories that are helping us. We're understanding from that. We're getting moral lessons from them, whatever. So I would say that there are new ways that storytelling is helpful, but I think it's always been there for humans.
Well, I think as a podcaster, right, we hear so many different stories, right, and so many different avenues and paths, and like you said, when someone tells a story, you would have never thought that they would have, done that or
Right.
gone that way, right?
Or I've spoken with so many people who tell me stories about things where I hear them and I hear the immense challenge, the pain, everything they went through, and then I see them come out on the other side, or they have come out on the other side a better, stronger person. And just hearing somebody's difficult story helps us understand our difficult stories more. So again, it you, you hear it all the time. You hear these stories podcasting, and it's a gift because it's helping you see perspective on yourself and everyone else.
Well, it goes right back to the beginning, right, where you said, I just lost my frame of thought there for a second. It was right there. Boom, it's gone. It'll come back.
Yeah.
Until it comes back, let's go to your next letter, the letter E, Kevin, and
Okay.
let's do empathy and humor. We talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but let's get deeper into this empathy and humor.
Yeah, empathy. If we are empathetic to our fellow humans or empathetic to any living thing, um, we are going to probably be kinder, and we're gonna, if we allow ourselves to be empathetic with people, we're gonna understand them better, and by understanding people better, you're gonna judge them less, and you're going to be more accepting, right? So I think the more empathetic we can be as people, uh, I think the happier we'll be, and the better off we all will be. Humor, as we just talked about, humor makes a lot of sense to me. Humor is really often humor is just somebody says something that you're not expecting, and it surprises you, and you just laugh. And it's a nice humor is just a little jolt over and over and over again to kind of remind you, keep you on your toes, things of that nature. But it also, as we were saying, helps you not take yourself so seriously, especially for me when I go into really, when I'm really anxious or I'm having some really bad anxiety. It is a huge step for me if I'm able to laugh at it, because then I can just take a step back from it, and it robs it of its power.
So, Kevin, what tools do you use to bring your humor out?
What tools do I use? So I would
Do you play
say
the
that.
spoons? Do you giggle? Do you?
Oh, well, I don't play the spoons, I'll tell you that much. I did play the tuba once upon a time. Um, I look, a lot of my humor can be kind of considered dark at times,
Oh, dark humor is
because
the best.
yeah, because you could either be in a lot of pain, or you could laugh at that pain, or pinpoint to somebody else the absurdity that this is a painful thing. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but uh, I the tool of humor I use the most is for the things I'm the most afraid of. Um,
Oh,
Death, um, loss of love, uh, things of that nature. I like to rob those of their power as well by making fun of them, for lack of a better term.
well, you really went dark, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
The lights went out,
Bye bye.
and the tea just spills.
Yes, that's right.
For the life of me, I cannot remember what I wanted to ask you. It just went whoop, over the head, and I guess it'll come back maybe at the end of the show. I'm not sure, but let's get into your A, Kevin, and your A is advocacy and reading.
Yeah. So advocacy. I, I'm a mental health advocate for one of the main reasons being, as I described earlier, when I was little and I had these racing thoughts and I didn't feel comfortable talking to anybody about it. It was just an unspoken thing. You didn't talk about it, and I felt so alone and isolated. And so to advocate for people who are challenged by mental health challenges, like myself, is to help them feel less alone, but it's also to destigmatize it. And some people, especially if they're in a really bad place, they're not going to be able to advocate for themselves. I know I've been in that place more times than I can admit, where I just could not. And so when I'm able to advocate for others, I know that they'll advocate for me when I need it, and it's we're all helping lift each other up. Reading. Reading is, as I said, my favorite thing in the world to do. I like to say that reading is just a form of listening. As you read, you're just listening to something else. And one of the reasons fiction is so great is because you get to go inside of somebody else's head. And so you can get an idea of maybe what it's like for what other people in your life who they may do something. You're like, why would you do that? But if you read and you continue to hear these stories and read, you are going to become more empathetic to why people may behave the way that they do. It also helps me feel a lot less alone. It calms my brain down, and obviously, it reading makes us all more knowledgeable. And I just think any time spent reading is never time wasted.
So now I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole, Kevin.
Okay,
Conversations messed up. When you hear those two words, what comes to mind?
conversations messed up.
Yeah.
Hmm. A couple things. The first one that I can think of is, sometimes you can be in a conversation with somebody and one person may say something that the other person either takes offense to or doesn't really understand the true meaning behind what it was said, and that totally messes up the conversation. It also brings to mind that we should be talking about the messed up things in our life more, which goes back to the advocacy thing. Going back to when I said difficult stories are universal, but they're not universally told. We're all having messed up times in our lives, but we're not talking about them. And I'm not saying everybody has to, spill all of their tea all of the time, but I'm saying to normalize some of that, even if it's with somebody close to you, a close friend, family member. It doesn't have to be out on the street or on social media. Even in those instances where we can be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I messed up," or "This is a messed up thing about me," you're going to have a richer, fuller conversation.
See, I take you down the rabbit hole, and the rabbit finds you, and you figure it out.
Yeah, I just
But
kept chasing that rabbit, man.
right, and that's the thing. When we're talking about mental illness, we have these messed up conversations because people are not understanding. They're so fixer, right? Like, let me fix you, and that's where the messed up conversations come in instead of just listening and having that open conversation.
Right.
Um, you know, and I like rabbit holes. I like to go down the rabbit hole once in a while and
Yeah.
see where Alice goes with the little rabbit and all
Yeah.
of that. So, sometimes we have these crazy tea parties with the Mad Hatter, and you just never know what comes out on the tea. Like, sometimes we have to have these holes in our conversations in order to fill the holes. Does that
You mean
make sense?
when you say a whole, like maybe a silence, or what do you mean by
Yeah,
that? Okay.
like a silence, right? Like when you go into a hole, right? Well, you could be falling and screaming and yelling, or you could be, oh my God, where am I going with this? Like the darkness, like when you're in mental illness and you're in those dark moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it gets so noisy in there, you just want the silence, right? So you just want that hole.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that whole, man, it gets noisy as hell, and you're right. Sometimes to fall down a hole every once in a while, as long as you're okay, it's good if it brings silence and peace.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go down another rabbit hole.
Ooh.
We're going to just do rabbit holes tonight, right?
Okay.
So being genuine is the peace within us. How do you feel about that?
Being genuine is the peace within us. Hmm. Um, well, I think if we are genuine to ourselves, we're more likely to be at peace. I think there's a lot of friction for a lot of people who maybe want to be true to themselves, but for whatever reason don't feel they can, and that leads to a lot of resentment, whether for themselves or for others. So I guess that's what that makes me think of.
And how do you feel about people being genuine when they talk about mental illness today?
Um, well, I prefer it. I prefer genuine always. And when talking about mental illness, I don't think you're going to get very far in the conversation or the connection if you're not being genuine about whatever struggles you may or may not have.
Well, it goes right back to the conversation's messed up, right?
Yeah, that's what, well, there you go. See, the two
See,
rabbit
I take you
holes
full
came
circle.
into each other. They just hit each other, right?
Like we come full circle.
Yes.
It's like when we make a mess and life is hard and mental illness gets hard and the darkness gets heavy, the thoughts get heavy, and we make a mess and we're like, who's going to clean my mess? Who's going to help me with my mess? And
And or even further, am I going to allow somebody to help me with my mess?
that's the number one thing, right, Kevin, is when do we ask for help, right?
Yeah, and part of advocacy is saying first and foremost, I'm a human being and I need help, just like everybody else needs help. I don't see a lot of strength in refusing that you need help. I would say that's the opposite of strength.
Now, when you hear the word projection, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I first think of movies, but projection, I'm always fascinated by projection, right? So the mental health version of projection where like I put all of what I'm afraid of on somebody else and then call, make them be the version of myself I'm afraid I am. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's something that happens to all of us to a degree. And this goes back to reading, this goes back to advocacy and truth and genuineness is maybe you don't know it in the exact moment that you're projecting onto somebody, but as you're reflecting on something that may have happened in your life, to say, hey, you know what? I was projecting on that person, and that person didn't deserve that, and actually that was more about me than anything. So I guess I'll say projection is common, but it's also an opportunity to understand ourselves and everyone else better.
Do you think projection is a form of reflection?
I think it's um, no, I would say it's the opposite of a form of reflection. It's not wanting to see something, or the only way you can see it is if you put it on somebody else, but not within yourself. And so we'll say that person, like for me right now, I'd be like, that person's balding. Like, no, Kevin, you're balding. Okay. So that type of thing, right?
So, if you could give me 3 words to describe your mood right now, what 3 words would you give me?
Um, hmm, reflective, actually. Um, calm, hopeful.
Well, that's good to know. Since you have
Yeah.
allergies of Miss Liz, right?
Yeah. Apparently, the coughing.
It's the tea. I'm telling you, it's the
I
tea.
know. I know. Uh, the sparkling water too.
Well, there you go. It's the sparkles in the water.
Yeah, it helps my throat. Feels good.
So, Kevin, I want to get into the acting. What got you into acting?
I like to be looked at. I guess is the good. When I was like 3 years old, I would do impressions. I mean, they weren't any good, but my everybody humored me. And then when I was 4, I was in my first show. I was in a show at church, and then from first grade on, I was in shows. I always enjoyed it. And I realized this past summer when I was doing some shows that one of the few places on earth where I'm not anxious is when I'm on stage. I feel pretty comfortable up there. I don't know if I can articulate why. I feel safe and comfortable up there. And I know that for a lot of, maybe not a lot, but for some people, they're like, are you crazy? I can't be in front of people, which I totally get. I just don't have that particular fear. So I've always enjoyed performing in front of people, and some of the best people I've ever met, I've met doing theater, doing shows. It's a great bonding experience, and it's just another form of storytelling, the one that I feel I can do relatively well.
So, you said you've done a couple of theater shows. So, is there
Hmm.
anything that anybody would know?
No, well, unless they were like I used to tour nationally here in the States doing non-union theater. Um, I've done some Shakespeare, done a bunch of musicals, done a lot of children's theater, and then I've done, main stage stuff in a number of places throughout the country, the U.S. that is. And so no, probably not. I'm in some like really. I don't know why anybody would have seen them. Like I'm in one feature-length film, but it's not. It's called Heaven is Hell. I just play a small role. I play David from the Bible, and I get to kill a bunch of zombies with my slingshot. So that
Oh,
was fun. Yeah.
slingshots. That's back in the 70s and 80s. There were slingshots.
Yeah, well, because David from the Bible, remember David and Goliath? Yeah.
So, did you ever have a slingshot growing up?
No, God, no. Hell no.
You
Oh
probably took
God,
someone's eye out.
I wouldn't have any eyes left if I had a slingshot. No, that was never my thing. I mean, Dennis the Menace, and I played outside a lot, but never really with a slingshot. I was more concerned with like baseball and stuff.
So, what's your favorite sport, Kevin?
Baseball.
Baseball? Why is
Yeah,
that?
for I think it's beautiful. My grandmother taught me about baseball when I was very, very young. She introduced me to the Cubs. Unfortunately, I'm a huge Cubs fan, and watching the games with Grandma on TV, going to the games with her, going to a baseball game, there's nothing like it. There's so much that goes on in baseball. If you see under the hood, I don't even know if that applies here, but that's going on in baseball that it's really fun to think about. It's a very cerebral game to me, and I just have loved it pretty much my whole life.
Is it the pattern of the baseball?
There's some pattern. There's the ebb and flow of it. There's that beauty of the green going out forever on the fields. There's a symmetrical feeling. There's the athletic, the individual and team athletic abilities, the speed, the way things kind of are like this, like this, like this, and then they go bam, and then a bunch of stuff happens at once. Um, and it also allows you to just think. It's not too fast, and I like that too. It unfolds in a I think a reasonable manner, and it helps you kind of, they call it a pastime. It helps you kind of reflect, even if it's between pitches, things like that.
Yeah, it's one of the slower sports, right? It's not too much body contact.
Not a lot of body contact, but I will say this. They did a time study some number of years ago, not too long ago, where between U.S. football, professional football, and baseball, and actually there's more downtime in football games than there are in baseball games. It's just that in baseball games, people aren't just slamming into each other all the time, right?
Yeah, it's one of the softer ones.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it because 3 strikes you're out. That's how I run my life.
Yeah,
Three
and
strikes
yes,
you're out.
that's true. And I know there's a pitch clock now, but think about it this way: it's the only sport where the defense has the ball, and it doesn't have a time. There's no, like, oh, fourth quarter, almost not in baseball. It's 3 outs. And so you have a limited number of outs, but you have as much time as you need to make those outs. I love that. I think there's something kind of profound about that.
I think it's it's not like a time limit, right? Like
No, 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 yeah,
when you
no
play
time limit.
hockey, then it's like, okay,
Right.
we're
There's
we're
three
playing three
quarters of
rounds and
20 minutes. Yeah. With baseball, it's outs. It's 27 outs. 9 innings, 27 outs, and if it takes 10 hours to get through those 27 outs, it takes 10 hours. Uh, it, it's about not making outs is the whole goal of baseball. Is don't make outs if you're on offense.
I'm gonna take you down a rabbit hole again. Something just
Hmm.
clicked in my head, right? And just out of the blue. We're
Okay.
talking about baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're talking about mental illness. We're
Yeah.
talking about podcasting. We're talking about conversation. Could you make a team for mental illness on the baseball field?
Could I make a team for mental illness on the baseball field? How do you mean? Like a team that is out there, like
Like you're
representing people with mental illness?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. We call it the obsessive compulsives or something, something like that. Anything, yeah. If you're able to bring a team around something like mental health and build it around that, again, that just brings more a spotlight on the very important issue. So yeah, I could see a team that would go out and be like, "Hey, we're going to see this game, and the message we should take away is, hey, it's a fun game, and we want to win." But also, they're reminding us that mental illness is something that a lot of people deal with, and it's something that is should not be stigmatized or looked down upon.
Well, it's kind of like that cartoon movie that came out, Inside Out, I think it's called,
Yep.
with all the different emotions, right?
I've never seen that, but yes, I know what you're talking
I've
about.
seen the first one, but I haven't seen the second one.
Okay.
Everybody tells me if I see the second one, I'm gonna cry. So
Oh.
just like, okay, I don't want to watch the second one, but I'm
Okay,
sure my
fair.
granddaughter will make me watch it. But if we looked at sports and we looked at mental illness and building teams and understanding, because we all got to work together, right? When we're playing a game, we all got to
Yep.
come together and understand that the end goal is somebody's got to win.
True. but then there's sportsmanship, and we're all there together. To be a winner, you have to have a loser, right? And so there's a balance in that, just like there should be, or we all strive to, I think, have some sort of balance in our lives, whatever way you want to, however you want to define that balance for you.
Now, if you had a bag, Kevin, I gave you a bag and
Hmm.
you're on the baseball field, what are you putting in your bag?
Now, do I need, you mean like what am I putting on to make the baseball better, or
Yep.
oh, sunglasses so I can see the damn ball in the sun.
Well,
My
sunglasses are cool.
Yeah, damn right. My glove, um, maybe maybe some batting gloves, to hold on to the bat, um, and a hat, baseball cap. And so
Baseball
yeah,
cap.
yeah, I think those will do.
See, we all need a bag in life, right? We all got to look cool. We've got to put our bag on,
Yeah, we
you
gotta,
know?
yeah, we have to have our tools, and no matter what situation we're in, there are tools that are applicable for that situation.
And the reason I'm taking down these rabbit holes and these bags and these baseball and all of that, and I know the conversation is all messed up and everybody's like, where is Miss Liz going with this? But I'm going to bring it right back to a good home run here. How do we break the stigma with a good game of baseball?
I think you break the stigma by saying, "Hey, everybody." I think let's take for granted that everybody understands the basic rules of baseball. They don't have to understand the game, but they understand the basic rules. Three strikes you're out, three outs in an inning. Whoever has the most runs at the end of 9 innings, as long as they're not tied, wins. I think if you go and then you assume that everybody who comes there understands the rules of baseball, they come to watch it, then you can also take those instances and have lessons in them about here's some strategy for how to win the baseball game, and then here's some strategy for how to maybe overcome a difficult mental health crises, or things like that. And so, kind of speaking about the strategy of baseball, speaking about the rules of baseball, the way that that you would speak about the strategy of dealing with mental health, and whatever rules that you believe to be important for you and the way you like to live.
See, it's those rabbit holes, right? We need to
Hmm.
understand the rules. We need to know that three strikes you're out, and I think that's the thing with mental illness is we don't understand the rules. We don't understand what we can and what we can't do with the illnesses that we live with because we're not understanding our diagnosis. We're being diagnosed, but we're not being told what we can put in our bag and what we can't put in our bag.
Right, or we're being diagnosed and they're like, here's some pills and never talk about it again, which pills are a supplement. They're not the only thing, right? I take medication, but it would not be as um, beneficial for me if I had not done the years and years of therapy that I've done, right?
So let's talk about that, Kevin. Since we talk about mental illness, how do you feel about how society looks at mental illness with medication and stuff like that?
There's still stigma. And I say, you hear that phrase, oh, we're having a conversation on mental health, but are we? Because I still don't think we really are. I think we play at lip service. I think we say, hey, look at us, pat on the back. We know that some people deal with mental illness, and that's enough to do for today. But that's not enough to do. It's to encourage people to tell their stories. It's to um, uh, not judge people again for having those stories and being empathetic to those stories, because we need those people to be empathetic and accepting of us when we're having our downtime. So there is, I still don't think we're really having a conversation about mental health. I think things like the show that you do, my show, obviously many other things, are trying to put it up on a higher platform, trying to normalize it, trying to allow it to be part of the everyday discourse. But I think still there's a long way to go in regards to actually having something where we would talk about it like we talk about the weather, or whatever. I mean, I hate small talk, so maybe not the weather, but you know what I mean? Anything that
Yeah.
we would consider a normal talking point, I still don't think mental health is in that realm yet.
It's not at that base yet.
Yes, right.
And that's how I feel too, is I feel like we can talk about it a little bit, but don't over talk about it. Don't overshare about it. You know,
Oh yeah, because then they're like, oh, hey, I don't need
I didn't
that.
open that can of worms, right?
Yeah, I was just being polite and saying, how are you? I didn't actually want you to answer me, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the
Because
thing,
then
right?
then I might have to look at something in myself. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, Kevin, and it's like if people say, "How are you?" and you say, "Oh, I'm okay," but you're not okay. Why are we so scared to say, "I'm not okay"?
I think because we know people who ask that question don't really want the answer. It's small talk. The same way that I know that I've asked people, "How are you?" I didn't want the answer. I was just making conversation, I'm sad to say, but I've done it like we've all done it. So I think it's a societal contract we have that I'm going to say, "How are you?" and I'm going to say, "Okay," and then we're going to go about our day. You
Right?
know?
Oh, you're
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I don't need to know anymore. And then
Yeah,
if you
that's good.
start to spill, they're like, "No, no, 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 no,
No,
no!
no, no,
I
stop.
gotta go. I gotta do the groceries. I gotta pick up the kids." Like, oh, okay.
Right.
That's how I feel when when we start talking about mental illness and somebody says like, "How are you?" and I'm just like, "I'm holding on." Oh, well, I'm holding. Okay, so we're not really gonna have this conversation. So I feel like you, Kevin. Like we feel like, they really don't want to know. So why are they
Yeah.
really asking, right?
I think because it's the polite thing to do, and it's a form of conversation. Um, and this goes back to truth. This goes back to genuineness. You say holding on, I say hanging. I always say I'm hanging in. I'm
I
hanging in.
always say I'm holding on. If I'm saying I'm holding on, you better start asking if I'm really okay. Or if I say I'm okay or I'm fine, then I'm really not fine. I'm telling you guys straight out. And I'll even say it. When you hear me say those things, I'm not good, you know? But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I want to fix her up, or I don't want you to tell me to take these supplements or to take this course or to go to therapy. Like I already know that I'm messed up. I don't need you to tell me all that stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe just sit with me and just accept it. Just be
Right?
like, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way.
Yeah, just have that conversation.
Right.
So how do we get the conversation started, Kevin? Besides spilling tea and going rabbit holes and baseball.
I think it's well, you could do it like all in where you just jump right in, but I think it really is shows like yours, shows like mine, as I said, all the other shows that are out there. It's about allowing people to tell their story one person at a time, one story at a time, so that each time that somebody tells that story, there's going to be new people who hear it. They will feel less alone, and then they may feel a little bit safer in telling, as I said, a friend or a family member. So I think it's about those of us who are able to be vulnerable at this time in our lives, to be vulnerable, to share our story, and to be there and hold space for people to share their stories as well. I think it's as simple as that, and the more that happens, the more normal it will become, and the more people will see it around them, which will make them feel it is more normal to do, and then they will feel more comfortable to be vulnerable. And then we will all, as I said, build the big empathy muscle, and we'll all feel a little less alone, and I think be more accepting of people, because the more stories you hear about people, the more you understand about people, the more accepting you are of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I asked you to give me one word to describe yourself, and you gave me the word kind. Why'd you give me that word?
I think that's my aspirational thing, but I try very, very hard to be kind. And as I said earlier, I certainly fail sometimes. Um, but the kindness that has been shown to me in my life um, have made my life so much better, have been some of the best gifts I've ever had. And so what's the thing that people say? It's free. It doesn't cost anything to be kind, because it doesn't. But it'll change somebody's day. And so I make that as my main goal in life is to try to be kind. with people I know and people I don't know, because is it Thoreau or Emerson? Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation, right? We're all going through something. And so just kindness to others helps them get through the day, the moment, the second, whatever it may be. And so I try to put kindness forward. So I think that's why I gave you that. And also, another thing I've learned recently is you got to be kind to yourself. I've never been very good at that part. I'm trying to get better at it, but kindness also is very, very important inwardly as well.
Well, it comes back to self-awareness, right?
Yeah, yeah. But also being self-aware, but not being too critical. Being like, yes,
Yeah.
I have this to work on or that to work on, but that's okay. And maybe tomorrow I'll be worse, or maybe tomorrow I'll do better, but I'm going to keep trying.
So, Kevin, I asked you your favorite color. You gave me orange. You're the second person out of 5 years that's only given me orange.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, I like it because orange is my favorite color. So,
Oh, yeah, and I don't necessarily know why orange is my favorite color. Not because it's the new black. I just love the color orange. Maybe uh, red seems too obvious. Maybe orange pops out at me more than red does, I guess. But I guess I couldn't really articulate why I like orange so much.
well, and it's a unique color, right? Like you said, most people will say red, black, white,
Red or
blue,
blue, yeah,
right? Orange,
yeah,
you never hear orange. Like I said, 5 years, you're the second one that gives me orange. And they're just like, yes, somebody that likes orange.
yeah. I love orange, man. Yeah.
So, do you like oranges?
Well, here's the deal. So I don't care about food. This is I eat, of course, because my body demands it. But I'm real lazy about food. If I could just take a pill every morning and not worry about food, that'd be great. Which is all it is to say is, if I had a choice between an apple and an orange, I'm always going to choose the apple because I don't have to peel the apple. I'm that lazy. I don't want to peel an orange.
Well, there's a good reason not to like an orange because you have to
Yeah.
peel it.
I mean, I like oranges fine, but I don't want to peel them. And I like orange juice a lot. Mm.
Well, this has been really an incredible conversation, us having that talk. So, if anybody would like to reach out to you, Kevin, or to be a guest on the podcast, and share that a little bit with the listeners tonight.
Sure, of course. So you have the website there, sadtimespodcast.com. There's a form there in which people can fill out a form to come on, and I would reach out to them and talk to them. And then also they could email sadtimes, so SADTIMES at Gmail. And just for anybody who is wanting to come on, I will let you know that the number one rule of Sad Times is the guest chooses 100% about what we talk about. It's about the story that you want to tell. And we have a prep call for every single person who comes on so that we can build an outline that you, the guest, will then get to approve of and say, you know what? I told you all that stuff. I don't want this line in there or that line in there. And maybe let's add this. And then when I send it back to you and you're like, that looks good, we lock that outline into place so that when we record, because we've obviously had many people on talking about extremely difficult situations. Obviously, Miss Liz, you were one of those people, and I want people to feel as safe as possible to know that this is what they're comfortable sharing, and know that I'm not going to come out with some question about something that they're not prepared for. It's about me facilitating and allowing you to share your story for your catharsis, and then so that other people who may be listening, as I said, might be like, I thought I was the only one who thought that. And then everybody feels a little less alone. So sadtimespodcast.com or sadtimeskc at Gmail. And you can find Sad Times wherever podcasts magically appear on your devices.
Awesome. And this is
Yeah,
how it rolls, right? We just connect. When we sit at different tables, right? I sat at your table, you come sit at my table,
that's
and we
right.
spill tea. And when I was on your show, Kevin, I really want to thank you for giving me that space to share my story because it is heavy. And there's a lot of things that I shared on your story that a lot of people, even my listeners, do not know. So if they wanted to check out that episode, they could on your platform as well. You gave me that space of openness. where I could be open and share those heavy stuff. So
Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate you saying that, and of course, thank you so much for sharing your story. I have no doubt that everyone who has listened to that story that you told, your story, came away moved and better for it.
well, thank you so much, and thank you to all the listeners and questions that came in tonight and supporters. I could not do this without all of you guys. This is teamwork. Miss Liz needs your help. So if you found that this tea time resonates with you, or would resonate with somebody that needs a picker upper and a little dark humor and some laughs and giggles and some baseball, because that's what we do. Yeah, share this tea time away. Miss Liz will be back on Monday and Tuesday with 2 more guests, and then another 2 on Thursday. And we're going to be wrapping up Tea Time for the 5th season. Miss Liz is saying farewell, so stay tuned. If you guys want to check out those tea times, you can check out all of the tea times. They will be there for life. So if you want to pick her up, or go and check out Miss Liz's tea times. And you just never know where I'm going to be next. But until then, thank you guys all for tuning in. And thank you, Kevin, for sitting and having some tea with me and going down the rabbit holes, because it was fun going down those holes.
I greatly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for listening.
Well, thank you. And I'll see everybody on Monday. Same time, same place, and we'll do tea all over again.
All right.